to another episode of the TFR Podcast. We are back once again today to review the Dutch Grand Prix and look ahead to the Italian Grand Prix coming up this weekend. It is your usual host, myself, CJH, and Patrick. I'm in a bit of a different environment this time around. It's not the usual recording room, if you like, so do bear with the surroundings around me and the kind of sound of me. I hope it all seems okay, but yes, a bit of a temporary studio for this week's episode. But we'll get straight into the action because it is our usual quality analysis and discussion as always. And like I said, Patrick joins me once again this week. How you doing, Patrick? And are you looking forward to the up and coming Italian Grand Prix?
I'm doing fantastic, and yes, I am looking forward to the Italian Grand Prix. It's always a good time when we head to Monza for Formula One.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's one of those races of the season where the atmosphere is just on another level, and there's just Ferrari mania and the whole pit straight where they got the grandstands and the podium there. It is always a very, I don't know, no matter the result, it's always a kind of race that you cannot miss, and for many different reasons. For the racing itself as well, it's a fairly basic circuit, I guess, but it does seem to throw up quite a lot of surprises, and who knows, we may see another surprise this weekend. But first up, we're going to get into a little bit of the stuff from Zandvoort, and it was obviously Oscar Piastri who dominated on the Dutch coast and really took a super important win for the championship, because it was obviously Lando Norris who ran into reliability issues, had his car break down with a few laps remaining in cruel fashion. He probably wasn't going to win the race, we can agree on. I don't think he quite had the pace for that one. But the car did break down, and now the gap in the championship is a whopping 34 points. It's a big old lead now for the Aussie. And are we thinking, Patrick, that this could be a critical moment in this championship fight? There's 9 rounds to go, so it's not impossible, but Lando has a massive mountain to climb now, doesn't he?
Oh yeah, 100%. He's got to pretty much outperform Oscar to the point where he scores 35 or more points than he does across the rest of the season, and there's not a lot of point scoring opportunities as well, so he's gonna have to really rely on a similar bit of misfortune happening to Oscar, or he's just gotta hope that Oscar really doesn't have good races for the rest of the season.
Yeah, exactly. He's really got to kind of now, well, bring his A game every single race if he wasn't already. I mean, he was on such a good run, if you like, before the summer break, and then they've came back after the summer break, and it was looking good for him in the practice sessions, but then you'd have to say Piastri, kind of made it count when it mattered, and I think that's almost a bit of a story of the season in some sense, where qualifying came round, Norris had been on top in every session so far, but Piastri was the one who was on pole position and controlled the race. I mean, Lando had a bit of a rough start, didn't he? I mean, Verstappen managed to nip ahead of him in the kind of first couple of corners. What did you make of that moment? I mean, my word, I was almost jumping out my seat when I saw Verstappen almost sideways onto the grass a little bit. I mean, he could have almost hit Piastri at that point if he lost control of the car, Patrick. I mean, what about that?
I mean, honestly, it was a very scary moment. Yeah, I 100% agree on that front, but I mean, with Max, he just likes to make risky moves, especially at his home race. So I'm not surprised, but I mean, that could have went very sideways. And I think Max was probably the only driver that could have saved that Red Bull from pretty much careening straight into Piastri.
Yeah, that kind of showed his driver skill in that moment and the kind of control of the car that he has. I mean, we've seen that a few times this season where the car's been quite difficult in moments, but he does kind of have this kind of unreal talent that only certain drivers have of just the kind of car control. And yeah, it was a very desperate kind of move, if you like. I think he kind of had to do it. at that point to get ahead of Lando, and obviously Lando in the end very easily got back ahead of Max and just swooped right around the outside into the first corner. But it was a good effort at least from Verstappen. But yes, obviously in the end for Norris, it all proved to be for nothing, getting back ahead of Verstappen because the car broke down. And yes, it was total despair, you'd have to say, for Lando at the time. He probably knows now that it's going to be a difficult one for him to win this championship. But do you think now, Patrick, that this weekend coming up, it's a must-win for Norris, or is that maybe to come further down the line where he's in that territory? I mean, it's quite similar to the 2016 championship where you had Hamilton have his DNF in Malaysia and then suddenly had to really kind of start winning almost every single race to claw it back to Rosberg, which he obviously didn't manage to do in the end. Do you see a similar outcome with this season?
I think so, yeah. Although granted, in terms of tracks that the drivers are both good at, Piastri I think has a bit of advantage going for Baku because he does have a better record around Baku than Lando Norris does. The reverse can be said about Singapore because Lando basically dominated that race last season despite almost putting it in the wall a few times under absolutely zero pressure. And then there's just other tracks that just seem to suit one or the other driver, but with how close Lando and Max, or sorry, not Lando and Max, Lando and Oscar have been throughout the entirety of the season, it's going to be really tricky. Something has to go wrong for Piastri for Norris to truly get a shot back in this championship.
Yeah, I agree. I think it needs Piastri to have his own reliability issues for Norris to properly get himself back in the mix. I mean, obviously, the last time before this that McLaren had reliability issues, and when I say that in a pure sense of they haven't had damage already in the race, and then that's led to it, was way back in Australia 2024, where Piastri himself had a mechanical DNF due to reliability. So it is incredibly unlikely that this will happen again. But Piastri himself is on a very long run. I think it's ever since that race where he has been finishing every single race and also in the points. So maybe the law of averages, Piastri at some point may run into trouble, and it'll give us a bit more of a spicier championship battle. I think we'll still have a bit of a championship battle because it'll be more of a thing now of Norris trying to close back up to Piastri. But this has slightly affected things, hasn't it? I mean, from a neutral point of view, it was a bit disappointing because we don't want the championship to get decided in this way. And we all kind of were thinking this could go all the way to Abu Dhabi, didn't we, Patrick?
Yeah, I know we were talking about that either the last podcast or a few podcasts prior, that we do want to see this championship go to the end. I mean, you're having a mechanical failure deciding a championship it just is unfortunate, whether it's real life or esports. It's just not ideal. It happens, but it's better when it doesn't.
Yeah,
it's better when you do get a full championship battle right to the end.
Exactly. We want to see it decided on the track, and you know, may the best driver win. I would definitely still say Piastri's been the better driver so far this season. I don't think that's too crazy to say that. I think Piastri's had the upper hand, but I don't want to see it decided in this way because I still think it's very close. I do think Lando is not a million miles away. He's made more mistakes than Piastri this season, but he's equally kept having to come back and he's kept having to fight back to keep himself in this championship. So who knows? It'll be one to just see really how the next couple of races go, because if Piastri wins in Monza, and then if he won again in Baku, I want to say is after that, I think.
I think, yeah.
Then I would think, Patrick, then I think it's almost done. I don't think it will be, obviously, until you get to your penultimate round or the round before. But I think if Piastri has another one of his runs of form like he had earlier in the season, where he just dominates race after race, then it's his championship to lose. I saw an interesting thing, actually, in the last day or so, that apparently Mark Webber wasn't too happy about the McLaren team not celebrating Piastri's win very much in Zandvoort. Obviously, part of this may be to do with them being a bit gutted about Norris's DNF. But do you read too much into that, Patrick? Because obviously Norris has been at the team a lot longer, but is there any kind of favoritism there, or do you not really see that?
I mean, there's a lot of speculation, and speculation has been pretty rife with that McLaren team pretty much throughout the entirety of the season. I don't know if you saw it, but there's people on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, actually directly messaging the FIA to launch an investigation into it because they think
Really?
Oscar is getting the preferential treatment, which I think is a bit ludicrous in my opinion. It Going back to Hamilton and Rosberg 2016, I don't remember seeing or ever hearing about that type of thing. Although granted, social media wasn't nearly as big then as it is nowadays,
Thankfully.
especially when it comes to Formula One. But I don't really. I mean, it's kind of tricky to see favoritism when it comes to, at least from what I've seen. There's been more obvious cases of favoritism previously. I mean, Red Bull definitely has more of a favoritism gimmick going on than McLaren does, and I mean back in Formula 2, there was sometimes a pretty big issue with favoritism, but I just don't really see it with that McLaren team.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're always going to get stuff like this come about in these kind of championship fights where people start looking at other things of being like, oh well, is he getting this kind of benefits or treatments, or did the team just care about one side or the other? We do know obviously with McLaren now there is a bit of a garage versus the other garage mentality, which I think is good for the entertainment. I don't think it's necessarily a good thing for McLaren. I think it could obviously cause more issues the closer we get to the end of the season. So that was definitely an interesting talking point with McLaren, and it was a big moment. So we kind of see now a bit of a different championship run-in to these final few races, and it's going to be a bit more Piastri probably having to play, not that he can, but play a bit of a patient game here of maybe what we saw earlier in the season where he doesn't need to risk too much, and that suits him probably quite well. He's a bit of a cool and calm character, and for him to kind of just take his time in some sense in terms of the racing aspect and not have to take too many risks, this could work quite well for him in terms of controlling where he is in the championship, where Norris is in a desperate scenario now. He can't afford any more mistakes. He's had so many mistakes this season. Had another mistake, you could argue, with a poor start in Zandvoort, where if he has another, then that could be curtains on the championship. So that's pretty much McLaren discussed with the incidents there. But it was, if that was despair for Norris, it was joy for Hadjar, because Isaac Hadjar became an F1 podium sitter. He was on the podium, third place because of Norris's DNF, and what a result it was for him in his rookie season once again. And you could argue maybe he is the rookie of 2025. I mean, what a drive, Patrick. He was running in fourth all race after qualifying there. Brilliant qualifying performance to get up to that position, beating both of the Ferraris and really putting himself in the mix there. But he came under a bit of pressure in the race, but withstood it all, and then picked up the pieces with Norris's DNF. And an amazing result for him and for RB, their first podium since Baku 2021. What was your thoughts on Isaac Hadjar's performance?
I mean, he did a really good. I mean, he was keeping a lot of quicker cars behind, arguably, with the Mercedes and the Ferrari. He wasn't miles off of Verstappen either in the early stages of the Grand Prix, so I think it was a very strong drive for Isaac. Hopefully we get to see more of that, because I will admit I was one of the people that initially said that I don't think Hadjar was going to do super well in his rookie season, but I also admit that I was proven very wrong in that regard. So, I mean, Hadjar has been doing fantastic this season. I hope he can keep it up. I'm not expecting another podium from him this season, but I mean, very good job to take the bull by the horns and steer that car to a podium.
Yes, I like that, taking the bull by the horns. I mean, he may be taking a different bull by the horns sooner rather than later if Red Bull come calling. But yes, you're right. I'd be shocked if he gets another podium this season. I mean, the fact that we've had a Hulkenberg podium and a Hadjar podium this season, despite McLaren's domination, is quite unbelievable, you'd have to say. And yeah, another fantastic result. And obviously, with what happened in Australia at the very beginning of the season, where he didn't even make the race, he crashed at the beginning of the formation lap, and was then kind of almost crying, if you like, in the paddock with Anthony Hamilton. And now here he is, really kind of just getting better and better as the season gets on. So the question will be next, Patrick, and I almost hate saying this, is when will the call come from Red Bull for him to jump into that second seat? I mean, if I was him right now, I would stay put. You do not want to be leaving that RB team whilst he is doing as well as he's doing right now. People like Alex Albon and Pierre Gasly had the same mistakes where they jumped into that Red Bull seat and that completely stalled their progression. What would you do if you were Hadjar, and what do you think will happen?
I think if I was Hadjar, I would like to go ahead and kind of wait it out for 2027, if I can. I think Red Bull needs to keep the consistency, just because there's been so much inconsistency with a lot of change. They need some sort of stability, and I think if they keep the lineup of Tsunoda and Verstappen for another year, I think that will pretty much help with that stability. I think Hadjar could get moved up in 2026. Definitely not 2025. 2025 is way too early, especially considering that Red Bull is kind of a junker at times. So that's my take on it. I think he should wait for 2027 optimally, give him another 2 years, but he should also keep his options open if another team comes knocking, and if the Red Bull still is suffering come 2027.
Yeah, exactly. I think that this is the other side of the coin here is, yes, the natural progression here would be to go into the Red Bull seat, but he's equally, as he said, actually after the race, he's not here just to be a Red Bull driver. He's here to win the World Championship at some point. So he may need to just put himself in the right frame and in the right window for when there's a bit more transfers that happen, a bit more movement on the grid, and then who knows, there may be another team that's doing better than Red Bull come along and offer him a seat, and then that's his way to top. I mean, if you think about it, Patrick, there's been a hell of a lot of Red Bull junior drivers that have actually gone away from the Red Bull program and done really well. The two examples I used before of Albon and Gasly, they've done far better now since they've left the team. Same with people like Sainz and others, and have made a good career in F1 without the dependence on Red Bull.
Yeah, I mean, another example that we can think of, even in a different motorsport, you have Zane Maloney, who used to be part of the Red Bull Junior program, and now he's in Formula E with a new team. They didn't have the greatest of times in Formula E. He is part of the Lola Yamaha ABT Formula E team, which try saying that one 5 times fast. But he's been doing pretty decent over there, considering it's a brand new team with a brand new powertrain over in Formula E. But that just shows you that Red Bull is one of the best academies for getting into motorsport, but there's also a very high turnover rate of drivers that go to other teams, other motorsports, and do far better there. I mean, Pierre Gasly is kind of another example of that, like you were talking about. He did not so great in the Red Bull, but he got his first and still only win in an AlphaTauri, and now he's been basically carrying the Alpine team. So
yes, I know. I think it's definitely something for Hadjar to consider here if he is the real deal. Because there's been another point of argument, if you like, that's been made about this, Patrick, is that RB actually really good? And that's why people people like Hadjar have been doing so well. I mean, Tsunoda, when he was in the car earlier in the season before he went in the Red Bull, was doing pretty good. Liam Lawson is doing better now than what he was doing in the second Red Bull seat. I mean, how good is this V-Carb or RB car? Because Alonso said in the post-media thing that if Verstappen was in the RB, he would have won the race. So what do you make of that? I mean, surely that's not the case, that the RB is actually better than the Red Bull car.
I will say this. I don't think it's exactly black and white. Like, oh yeah, the Visa is better or the Red Bull is better. I think the Visa is better for new drivers, and it's more balanced. It's more negotiable. It's tameable.
Yeah.
The Red Bull is such a pointy car because that's what Max likes, and I mean it's probably one of the worst kept secrets in Formula One that car is basically built to Max's exact specification. So other drivers who aren't used to that super pointy driving style just tend to suffer in the Red Bull. And even something I want to bring up too is in 2024 at the postseason tire test, Tsunoda actually did do some pretty strong lap times in the RB20. So I mean, there's definitely Tsunoda's definitely not a bad driver. He can handle the Red Bull style of car. But in particular, this RB21 is just
It's a nightmare.
It's just a pain to drive, yeah.
I think no driver, unless you are Max Verstappen, could almost get on top of that car. And I think this is the thing. For Hadjar, for goodness sake, if they come calling, being like, we need you to get into that Red Bull seat, just say no. Say no. I mean, what's the worst case scenario? They're not going to boot him out of RB, but just stay where you are, because it is not worth the risk of derailing the great season that he's had so far by taking that seat. So congratulations to Isaac Hadjar, and hopefully that will continue throughout the season and many seasons to come. But next up, we're going to talk a bit about Ferrari, because they had a weekend to forget in Zandvoort, and I think the most memorable point of the race was when Leclerc was out of the race and he was sat on top of the hill of where he crashed, and watching everyone drive past him. I mean, the photographers had an absolute field day with that one. But yes, Hamilton and Leclerc both crashing out in separate kind of incidents. More, I'd say, Hamilton on his own, and then Leclerc was a bit more kind of hopeless in terms of a car crashing into him. But let's start off with a Hamilton incident, Patrick. I mean, what did you make of that one? Was that pure driver error, or was there a bit of sympathy toward Lewis in that incident?
I think it's more driver error initially, but I think initially it is driver error with Hamilton. He went too wide and got onto the painted strip, but with the weather actually made the issue worse. So I think Hamilton was essentially the catalyst that was kind of already on fire, and the weather was more the fuel to add to that fire. So that's my take. I think it's both. I would say it's really hard to pick one or the other when it comes to that, but I think in general it's Hamilton's fault, with the weather just making it even worse.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Everyone else was taking that kind of same line, but Hamilton just took it a tiny bit wider on that lap, and then that proved to be mega costly, because the car was just almost hopelessly sliding off the circuit onto the grass, and then he found the barrier. And yeah, I think you would say that kind of sums up a bit of Hamilton's season. I mean, in the Mercedes seasons, you just didn't see him make those mistakes. Even he admitted it today in the Monza kind of media day, that was a bit of a rare thing to happen to him. So, yeah, a bit of an interesting one, that. And, yeah, considering he was on a bit of a positive note going into that race, he was feeling they were a little bit more on top of things. Yeah, a bit of another costly error. But in terms of Leclerc, he was improving in the race and he was running quite strong. And then a wild Kimi Antonelli decided to just have a bit of a go at a Ferrari, didn't he, at turn 3, and got a bit too ahead of himself. I mean, I have to hold back a little bit on this, but it's becoming a bit of a common thing with Kimi this season. But Leclerc stood no chance, didn't he, Patrick? I mean, he got absolutely clattered. Front wing off the car, puncture. I mean, it was a mess.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of flashes of early day Max Verstappen. But if he turns out like Verstappen, then there's a good chance that he can turn around and actually be really strong. We may even see a dominant season from him in about 5 or 6 years' time. But yeah, that was, I mean, if you say that that is Leclerc's fault, I will recommend you to go to an eye doctor, because that was definitely just not Hamilton, Antonelli getting a bit too dicey onto the inside of a corner that, because normally with racing corners, you want to try to get to the inside of the corner and then go out. But with turn 3 at Zandvoort, it's kind of the opposite. You'd rather take the outside line because it's quicker. So Antonelli trying to go through the inside line just did not play out nice for him.
Yeah, I agree. It's one of those corners that, yeah, when you do it on the sim and you try and do your laps, you can kind of take different lines there and get away with it. I mean, there is usually just one main line that you can take, but in terms of a racing move, you could technically get away with it. But in real life F1, that is just a bit too much of a kind of single file corner to try something. He could see the opportunity, that's for sure, but I don't think the car could match his ambition in the moment. And yeah, it just understeered into Leclerc, really. I mean, not to sound too dramatic here, but how much longer can this go on with Kimi, Patrick? Because he's on a really, really bad run of no points for a heck of a long time. I mean, since kind of Canada, when he got that podium there, he's not really had much else to show for at all. And I saw an interesting thing with Jacques Villeneuve on the Sky F1 coverage, where he was kind of getting challenged by the other pundits, if you like, and they were saying, when Max was that age, he was making mistakes, and that's what a lot of people have said, is that when Verstappen was the same age as Antonelli, he was making mistakes. But Villeneuve kind of snapped back and said, well, yeah, but the thing is, Verstappen wasn't, multiple tenths off the pace of his teammate. He was there with the pace from the get-go. And even when he got in the Red Bull seat, he had the pace then, and you just kind of put up with mistakes. When the difference with Antonelli here, he hasn't got the pace, and he's also got a lot of mistakes in his locker. So, where do you see this going for Kimi, Patrick? Do you think this is just, again, part of the whole learning, or is it too easy to say that? Is it too easy to give him a bit of a free pass here and basically just find his feet in this way, or will he? Will he actually get there?
Surely you're gonna run into a limit at some point. I mean, there's just no way otherwise. Hopefully he does get that chance, and hopefully he does blossom, because there is definitely a lot of potential there, and there's definitely a lot of untapped skill that Antonelli has, but he's just a bit too reckless at the moment, making a few too many rookie errors.
Yeah, because I think that's the thing as well, is Toto Wolff kind of sees Antonelli as a bit of his project, if you like, and it's the driver that he has almost like blessed of, like, you're going to be the next star in F1, and he's given his kind of backing and faith into Kimi. When I found this season at times, like, George is probably thinking, well, what the hell do I have to do to get that treatment? Because he's been the one getting the win and the multiple podiums and stuff like that. But, yeah, I think, for me, I'm kind of at the point now with Kimi where I need to see something. I need to see something towards the end of the season here, whether it's just more consistency or another amazing result. Because if he kind of just keeps going on this kind of DNF or no points, I just don't think that's good enough. I don't think it's good enough for Mercedes in F1. I think he could be at another team and do quite well and find his feet a bit better. But I think whilst he's at Mercedes, the top team, or one of the top teams in F1, I just think it's just going to get a bit too much pressure. Because how about this, Patrick, that Mercedes next season have a championship contending car and it's on the pace straight away, which is, a lot of people have been saying this, that Mercedes could be the ones to beat next season, and Antonelli's still in this kind of form. Surely they will not have the same level of patience if the car is ready to win a championship.
Yeah, I think next season will be a very good litmus test to see where Antonelli is pace-wise and if he can handle being in Formula One. Uh, Still think it's too early to call this season, but next season, especially because Mercedes are, like I said, the team that everybody's expecting to be the cream of the crop. They're gonna have the best power unit, more than likely. So it'll just really depend on how Antonelli does in 2026. That kind of really decides his future.
Absolutely. So we'll just see how it goes for Kimi. He'll be hoping for a good race this weekend at the Italian Grand Prix. Obviously, his home race this weekend, so a lot of support will be going for him. In terms of some of the other results with Zandvoort, we obviously had Verstappen on the podium in second place, and it was kind of nowhere near really beating Piastri. He could have had a little go towards the end of the race if he was feeling a little bit reckless, but yes, it was Verstappen who finished second. Some of the other kind of results to note is we had Russell in fourth. That's solid points for him considering he had damage on the car, which actually, speaking of that, when he picked up damage, Patrick, what did you make of that move from Leclerc? Some people liked that, some people didn't like that move. Where do you stand on that? Now, please don't sit on the fence with this one, because I need you to commit to what's your racing code for this one. Do you like that kind of aggressive driving, a little bit like Gilles Villeneuve and René Arnoux, which if you might know that example of racing back in the day, before my lifetime, I'll just put that out there before anyone thinks that's the case, or is that over the line, which it actually technically was, it was over the white line from Leclerc.
To me, if you're over track limits, then you're over the line. It's kind of night and day when it comes to that. If that was on track and there's a little bit of bumping and barging, then I'd say, you know what, that's fair. But like you mentioned, he was off track limits, and yeah, I think that's kind of a slam dunk, a bit over the line there for Leclerc.
Okay. I mean, that is the thing. Russell did get damage from it as well, and that's how Antonelli got ahead of Russell. But then Leclerc ended up getting swiped off by Antonelli, so maybe in some crazy way there was a bit of karma there that came towards Leclerc. But yeah, I think it was like exciting to watch, but yeah, in terms of the rules, maybe that was a little bit over the mark. Alex Albon, he had a fantastic race to get fifth. He had a good first lap to work through a bunch of cars, and a fifth place is a much needed result for Williams, just to give them a boost of points. A team that had a much needed result as well, and driver, was Ollie Behrman, with sixth place after starting in the pit lane, I'm pretty sure. So what a drive from him, Patrick. I mean, where did that come from? That kind of came under the radar. I know we had the collision with Lawson and Sainz, which Sainz got penalised for, which Williams have then today appealed. But that kind of gave them 2 extra positions. But where did Behrman come from here? I mean, I looked at that when watching the race and was like, wow, where's he come from?
Yeah, he did just kind of come out of left field. I mean, Behrman's got good pace, but he just hasn't been able to kind of put it all together. I mean, people might forget that he is also still a rookie. He only did 3 F1 races prior, and Zandvoort was not one of the tracks that he raced at in F1. Actually, it may be in he might have had to do it like one of the Formula Regionals if he's actually ever been to Zandvoort.
Yeah.
Because Zandvoort's not on the Formula 3 or Formula 2 schedules. It might be on Formula 4. I'd have to look into that. But, I mean, it's a track that there's a good chance he's never actually raced at before, especially in a car as powerful as a F1 car. And there's a lot of other tracks, too, that He hasn't had great results in even tracks that he has done well at the past, like Silverstone. But I mean, he's got pace, but I think in general the Haas car isn't super quick. It's not like the definite midfield rocket that we saw last season. It's definitely taken a step back, I think, in terms of performance. But I mean, I think he's still got pace, and I think he's finally just starting to tap into it a bit.
Yeah, I agree. He's had a bit of a rough season. I'd say he's probably been one of the weaker rookies, for sure. Actually, yeah, I would go with. But yeah, I mean, amazing result, and he was really kind of lagging behind in the drivers' championship with not too many points. But now, with a sixth place, that has given him a nice little boost in the standings. And yeah, hopefully Ollie Behrman now has a good run of form. His teammate Ocon was in 10th as well, so a double points finish for Haas, which they really needed. They're lagging behind a bit in the constructors' fight as well, because we've said before, that's a bit of a four-way fight almost between certain teams there. So there's still plenty to play for there. We then had the Aston Martin pair of Stroll and Alonso in 7th and 8th. So just solid points for them, but they kind of got stuck a bit during the race with strategy. And then Yuki Tsunoda got a couple of points for Red Bull, which is a bit of a rarity, dare I say it, for him this season. Cole Pinto just missed out again, and then I said about Lawson and Sainz. The two Saubers were just not really with the pace this past weekend in Zandvoort, and then Kimi Antonelli got a whopping great big penalty, which bumped him down the order. So that is pretty much everything for Zandvoort. It's a pretty chaotic race, wasn't it, Patrick? I mean, I tell you, I was pleasantly surprised with how good it was, because I don't think many people thought it was going to be an amazing race, which maybe it wasn't quite amazing, but it was definitely good, wasn't it?
Yeah, I would say so. The bit of a tease with the weather kind of threw things into a right too for the fans and the drivers. But overall, I would say it was a pretty solid race. I mean, it's better than a good chunk of the races that we've had this season so far.
Yeah, absolutely. That is for sure. Some races the bar has not been very high for them to get beat on that one. That is for sure. But next up, we do have the Italian Grand Prix, one of the highlights of the season. The Monza Grand Prix, if you like, as well, because obviously we do have two races in Italy nowadays with Imola and Monza. I probably prefer Monza over the two Italian races. I don't know if that's a hot take or not, Patrick. I mean, where do you stand? Nope, not at all. That's fine. But yeah,
Honestly, if they swapped out Imola for Mugello, I would not be upset in the slightest. I'm not a huge fan of Imola. I will just say that right now. But yeah, definitely Monza is definitely the better of the two when it comes to Italian tracks on the Formula One calendar.
Now we're talking, Patrick. Mugello is one of the best circuits in the world. So, that's a pretty unfair comparison, I have to say. But if F1 somehow managed to get Mugello back on the calendar, I'm all for it. Scrap the pair of the circuits. I'll take Mugello back, that is for sure. But I think that one might be a tricky one. But more to the point, Monza does provide quite exciting races before. It sometimes can't do that. I don't know if that's because there's this weird dirty air issue that they have sometimes at Monza. We see it a bit in qualifying nowadays, where actually they don't necessarily want the tow because the dirty air is not too great. But we obviously have also seen infamous Grand Prix where, like 2019, when obviously Leclerc won the race in spectacular style, but then we had the crazy qualifying. I mean, I don't know if you remember that, Patrick, where they had the cars shooting down the kind of runoff after the pit exit, and then half the field didn't make the line in time, or even more than that, should I say. So we're not expecting that this weekend, is that right? I think with these different cars, we don't really see that now with qualifying.
Correct. Yeah, I think it's gonna be normal qualifying. You might see some surprises for some cars that tend to benefit straight line or from straight line speed, like the Red Bull, the Williams. I don't think McLaren is going to be as strong because they are stronger at the higher downforce circuits compared to the more straight line circuits, which we haven't really had a lot of. The only track that you could say that we've had so far that does kind of fall into that bracket is Canada, because Canada does have quite a bit of straight line speed that you have to kind of consider. But I think in general, if McLaren is going to struggle at track, it might be Monza. But I mean, struggle in this case is maybe not exactly being like dominating,
Yeah,
but
not
still
winning
a
by a
favorite.
minute.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. We've had Zandvoort, Hungary, Spa, Silverstone. They've all got high speed corners or medium speed corners at some point, and they got a lot of load speed as well, which is McLaren's hunting ground, you'd have to say. And you'd have to say for the likes of Red Bull, it is not what they like at all. So we're thinking maybe Verstappen could be the contender with the McLarens this weekend, which is quite an exciting prospect. How are we thinking for Ferrari's hopes? I mean, is this going to be a track that should suit them? And what about Mercedes as well?
Mercedes, not so much. Ferrari is going to be another mixed bag. Because we have to remember, due to a penalty sustained at the Dutch Grand Prix, Hamilton does have a 5-place grid drop, so
Yes.
that could be exemplified even if he has a rough qualifying. Like say if he qualifies P12, he could drop down the order to P17. So that's going to be a tricky time for him. Leclerc's got a bit of a better shot, but it just does not seem like that the Ferrari's fully dialed in yet. But maybe Monza will be a little bit of extra magic. I know they're going to win the award for the best looking car on the grid because that
Yeah.
special edition Monza livery is beautiful.
How could I forget? Thanks for mentioning that, Patrick. What a livery that is. It is unbelievable. And I tell you, I'm glad they didn't go for a blue livery because I was worried about that for a moment. When I saw those
Same.
kind of merch items, if you like, if you call it that, teased, where they were that kind of Smurf blue, I was like, no, please, don't do this again. But thankfully, Patrick, common sense has prevailed, and we have got a tribute Ferrari livery and suits, and even the helmets are a little bit of a tribute as well, to the 1997... of course I've screwed that up. 1975. Get it right in the end. Niki Lauda winning Ferrari. I think it was his first ever championship that he won back in the day, and yeah, that is the 50th anniversary of that. So a touching tribute from the team to that car. It's a super iconic car as well. I mean, anyone that can do a quick Google search of what that looks like, you can kind of recognize it straight away. And yeah, that is going to be a very good looking Ferrari car. Hopefully it's as quick as it looks, because we always like to see Ferrari competing at Monza, and we've seen it in the past before where they've had a bit of a rough season and then they've suddenly rocked up to this track and are competitive. So speaking of all those things, we're going to get into our predictions, Patrick. Now, I've got a funny feeling, I don't know why, this could be quite a hard race to predict. I mean, you know, if the Dutch GP had Hadjar on the podium, then who knows what we could have with Monza.
There's a lot of Cinderella stories that kind of meet their climax at Monza, so I think it's going to be fun. I think there's going to be some surprises.
Right, far away then. What is your pole position prediction for the Italian Grand Prix of 2025?
I am actually going to throw a bit of a different one out there, although not super different. Haven't gone quite off the deep end yet, but I'm going to go with Max Verstappen for pole position. Because that Red Bull, to me, is a bit of a better straight line speed car than the McLarens.
You've pinched it from me. I was literally going to say the same thing. And I think we've both talked each other into this with the whole thinking of the Red Bull will go stronger here. But I believe it as well. I think Max Verstappen will be on pole for the Italian Grand Prix. Because, yeah, there's been other tracks this season where the Red Bull's been competitive over one lap at these kind of types of tracks. So what about your podium? Now, starting with third place, working your way up, how is it looking? Because that's where it could be a little bit more tricky. You have to think it's quite a fast race here, but also it's quite easy to get the overtakes done if you have the pace over the car in front of you.
This is where I'm going to actually just go off the deep end here a bit. For my third place, I'm going to keep the trend of podiums that are unlikely anywhere else. I'm going to go with Alex Albon to actually get P3 here.
I've seen someone else say that as well. I don't know where I saw it, but that is a bold call, Patrick, and I'll be all there for it, and that'll be an amazing thing to see. But that is bold, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the Williams car has historically done very well at Monza, even though there's been a lot of times where it's not a good car. I mean, 2023, I mean, that car was honestly, actually 2024, that car was pretty rough, and it still did pretty good around Monza. So I think there's a lot of potential for a Williams podium here at Monza.
All right. How's your second and first looking?
I'm going to go with Piastri for second and Verstappen in first.
Ooh, okay. No Norris on the podium. Explain that.
I think because of his engine allocation, I just don't think, because typically a team will want to take a new power unit for Monza, but I think given his recent powertrain issues, although granted it was noted that there was a chassis, it was the part of the chassis that caused an oil leak, which caused the engine to shut down. But I think that still messed up the engine, at least somewhat. So he'll have to go to an older power unit that doesn't quite have the same level of freshness, the same level of horsepower compared to some of the other cars. And I think it'll take a bit of a tougher time trying to get through the field.
Okay, that is a very good prediction, Patrick, because I did not think about that much context with mine. So, well, let's just see. That could be quite an exciting Italian GP ahead if that happens. I've gone for a little bit more of a safer bet with this. I was really tempted to put a Ferrari on the podium. I might still, actually. Do I? No, I'm not. I think that'd be just too much wishful thinking. I'm thinking Verstappen will be third. Unfortunately, he will drop a little bit further back after getting his pole position. And then it will be Oscar Piastri in second place, with Lando Norris winning the race. But I don't think by much. I think McLaren will get pushed hard by Verstappen, but in the end, with better tyre wear and other factors, they will come out on top. So a bit of a safe kind of prediction. I've chickened out of that, Patrick, I'm afraid, in terms of going all in. I could have said Leclerc was going to win again. Who knows? I mean, we didn't expect that last season. So that would be even more of a surprise if that happened this time around. But we shall see. I hope yours is right, though. I want to see Alex Albon on the podium, as everyone would.
Agreed. Yeah, I mean, it'd be a good story for him too. I mean, that Williams car is definitely a massive step up from where it was just last year. So I think it'd be a good story. Monza just, like I said earlier, Monza just seems to be kind of a magnet for those kind of good stories.
Absolutely. Well, let's hope we're going to have plenty more good stories this weekend from the Italian Grand Prix. That's been this week's podcast. And if you've enjoyed this week's edition of the TFR Pod, make sure to subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, we need as many subscribers as we can get at the minute, so please do subscribe to the channel. If you're listening on your audio platform of choice, make sure to give us a follow. Thank you, Patrick. Been a pleasure as always. We'll be back next week to review the Italian Grand Prix, and who knows, maybe Ferrari can produce a miracle and prove us both wrong and everyone wrong, and somehow come away with a podium or maybe even a victory. We'll find out, and we'll see you in the next one.